Alrighty, it's 11 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the Fed Up with Consumer Fraud, How to Protect Yourself from Common Scams. My name is Juliana Nicholson, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at Manasquan Bank, and I'll be your moderator for this morning's seminar. We have a great presentation planned for this morning, but before we get started, we do want to remind everyone that we are recording this presentation so that we can share it with those who were not able to join us. We also want to ask that you please remain muted, and if you have a question to ask the experts, please use the chat feature located in the top navigation bar, and we'll be sure to address each question at the end of the presentation. We've already received several questions, some of which may be answered during the call, but we'll be sure to answer as many questions as possible at the end. We will also be posting polling questions throughout the presentation, so your participation is greatly appreciated. Okay, so for those who aren't familiar with Manasquan Bank, skipped ahead there. So we have been dedicated to helping our communities grow and thrive since 1874 with mortgages, construction loans, business loans, and everyday banking like checkings and savings accounts. We operate 15 branch locations within Monmouth, Ocean, and Middlesex counties. And as technology has evolved, so has traditional banking capabilities, and we take pride in providing our clients with the latest banking solutions. We're known for our friendly, knowledgeable staff who are ready to help you attain your goals, whether it be for personal finance, business management, loans, and more. In this morning's presentation, we'll be sharing an overview and examples of current scams, such as check and wire fraud, spoofing and phishing, which is better known as email and text message hacking, and debit card compromises. And most importantly, we'll be sharing tips on how to protect yourself against these hackers. Okay, so let's get started. I'm joined this morning by our local experts, Sue Ellen Arechi, Senior Vice President, BSA and Deposit Compliance Officer, and Anna Ferreira, Vice President, Fraud Officer of Manasquan Bank. Sue Ellen, Anna, thank you for hopping on the call today. I'll now turn the presentation over to you.
Thanks for joining us today and allowing us to share some current scams and provide you with tips to protect ourselves from becoming a victim. I am Sue Ellen Arechi, the BSA and Deposit Compliance Officer, along with Anna Ferreira, our Fraud Officer. We monitor, review, and investigate for fraudulent and suspicious account activity. Now I will turn it over to Anna.
Good morning. I'm Anna Ferreira, the Fraud Officer at the bank, and we have seen an increase in fraud, and I wanted to share some of what we are seeing with the audience. We'll start off with check fraud. Next slide. Okay, so check fraud is a criminal act that involves the use or manipulation of checks to obtain money that does not belong to the check writer or user. It can be done by forging, altering, faking, or stealing checks. Check fraud can be committed with physical or digital checks. You would think that check fraud would be on the decline with so many other channels available for making payments, but we are seeing a significant increase in fraudulent checks being presented. One of the things that we are noticing is that checks are being stolen from mailboxes. If you're paying a bill or sending money to someone, be mindful that individuals may be watching for mail in your mailbox. And they also may target the blue mailboxes in your neighborhood or in the front of the post office. We are aware that they may put a device in the mailbox to grab the mail that is being dropped in. They will then take these checks and change the name and sometimes the amount of the checks and deposit them at the bank. Many times they deposit checks through an ATM or through a mobile app to attempt to have them accepted. And sometimes they give them in other scams that they may be committing. Pay close attention to the checks that are clearing from your account to make sure that nothing has changed. Not only look at the front of the check to make sure that the amount is the same and the payee is the same, but also look on the back. Because if you're making a check payable to a utility company or another business, it shouldn't be a person signing the back of that check. So pay close attention to that. Another type of check scam that we're seeing involves rentals. So in this scam, the individual will send a check for a rental of the property and request confirmation that the check has been deposited. Once they receive this confirmation, they will immediately contact the owner and state that there has been some type of emergency and that it's urgent that the funds be reimbursed. They request that the funds be returned by Zelle or by wire. The owner gets caught up in the urgency and sends the money. So, and then 3 business days later, the check is returned as fraudulent as withdrawn from our client's account. It does take at least 3 business days and sometimes a little bit longer to receive notification that a check is not good. So before refunding money, take a pause, relax, and do not send out that money right away. Don't fall prey to the urgency that these people are implying, because it takes time for the funds to clear, and just because you've deposited them doesn't mean that, and they're available, doesn't mean that the check won't come back. Sue Ellen, do you have anything to add?
Yes, check fraud can come in many different ways, as Anna has just mentioned. Fraudsters, bad actors, whatever you want to call them, can purchase your bank account information on the deep, dark web. One of the ways they use the information is to set up online banking at your financial institution. They can do this since they purchased your information and have your name, address, social security number, date of birth, and account number. The good news: if you've already signed up for online banking at your financial institution, the fraudster will not know your password, therefore will not be able to access or gain any of your account information. For this little scenario I want to talk about right now, let's assume you have not signed up for online banking. Now the fraudster can successfully sign up with all your credentials. One thing I'll say, these fraudsters are diligent and patient in their jobs. They buy all this data and then they attempt to sign up for online banking at financial institutions all over until they successfully obtain access to some accounts. And once they have access, they're still very patient. They wait a few more weeks to make sure no one is wise to them. Then they transfer funds from one of your accounts to another account, to a checking account. They create a fraudulent check and deposit it into another financial account at another financial institution. Before you are aware, a check may have cleared your account for $7,500, and you didn't even know that someone signed up for online banking. Anna, would you like to share some more ways that we can protect ourselves from different types of check fraud?
Sure. So some check fraud protection tips. Establish online banking to review activity. Like Sue Ellen said, if you already have online banking, somebody else can't sign on to online banking. And it's good for you to be able to look at what's happening in your account when it's happening. Add mobile banking to your phone. This way, if you have mobile banking on your phone, you can access your account 24/7. Set up alerts to notify you of transactions occurring to your account. You can set up an alert to say, show me any transaction over $1. And this way, you know exactly what's happening at your account at all times. And don't leave mail in the mailbox. There's been a lot of crime in the area recently where the mailboxes are being targeted. And if you're going to mail a bill, just go to the post office and drop it in the actual post office. Next slide. We're going to be talking a little bit about wire fraud now. So wire fraud occurs when wires are used in a criminal act. Confirm that the sender is an individual in your contacts and verify that they are requesting the wire transfer. And don't lie about the purpose of the wire. Now, Sue Ellen has a great story to tell you about a wire fraud that happened here at the bank. But it's not really a great story because it's sad that it happened, but it's a very good example of what could happen. Sue Ellen?
Exactly, Anna. Thank you. We want to just share this story so that you can be diligent whenever you're sending a wire. We had a client fall victim to wire fraud recently. He received an email stating that his Norton antivirus protection was due. He knew he'd recently paid that for $199. He clicked the link in the email that said, click here if you've already paid. After he clicked, a message said, call this number. The victim called that number, and the fraudster asked for access to the victim's computer. And then the victim gave access to his computer. Anna, I know you saw them. Let's hope our audience saw all the red flags. Never click a link in an email, never call the number from an email, and never give access to your computer. So what happened next was the fraudster showed him that he had made a deposit into his account for $199,000 in error. The fraudster became very upset, stating he was going to lose his job and how he had to get these funds back out of her account, blah, 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 and convinced the victim to wire the funds to Brazil. Explained that he had to lie to the bank when they asked the purpose of the wire. The victim was instructed to say he was buying a home, and the fraudster even emailed the victim a set of blueprints to take to the bank. The victim thought this all did sound a bit odd and said, why should I do this? The fraudster, who still had access to his computer, showed the victim the accounts, all with zero balances, and told the victim, if you do not wire the money today, I will take all of your money. Well, obviously, our client was extremely frightened and did as he was told and wired the money to Brazil. Unfortunately, for our client, the victim, no money had been deposited into the account. It was only a transfer from one account to another. No money was withdrawn from any of the accounts, only if a few simple steps would have been taken. As I have mentioned before, never click on a link, never call a number that you don't know. Make sure you know the number you're calling, and never give access to your computer. But I know this is easy to say when you're thinking clearly and not frightened and being pressured.
Now, so well, did he call the police and notify the police?
He did. And as your bank will ask you to get a police report when these scams happen to you, a wire is gone. As I mentioned, these fraudsters are pretty good. They when that wire hit Brazil, it was already being wired out, transferred out, moved out into multiple more fraudulent accounts. It's gone. As Anna
It's a
mentioned
shame.
before, pause. Don't be in a rush to send anything.
Some wire for protection tips that we have. Look closely to verify the email address. Check for any spelling errors or missing letters. Call the person who is requesting a transfer directly to verify that the request is legitimate. If you think a request is suspicious in any way, trust your instincts and do not send the wire until you complete your due diligence. If you reply to the message, always use the email you have in your contacts before replying. We're going to go over another wire story, but it really involves spoofing. So that our next slide is on email spoofing. And email spoofing is when an email address is disguised to look like that of someone you may know. So you can spot this difference here. But Suellen's going to tell you a little story about an email spoof that happened and the funds did get wired out. Suellen?
Yes, so as you can see on the screen in front of you, there are the two emails, John Smith, and you can spot it because they're right next to each other, and you can see that there's an extra I and a T. If you're expecting an email from someone, John Smith, on your device, your laptop, your phone, you're not going to have them side by side. You're not going to notice. So we request that you be really diligent and check the email, even when you're expecting one, because it could be a scam. We had a client that received an email from whom he thought was his attorney. He was waiting for the email since he was working with a realtor to purchase his first home. The email had the wire instructions, and the client went to the bank and said, I need to wire the $50,000 for a deposit on the house I'm buying. The bank manager reviewed the wire instructions and questioned the client and said, where are you purchasing your first home? And he says, well, in New Jersey, of course. And she says, your wire instructions are sending them to an LLC in Ohio, not to a real estate office, not to an attorney's office, not to a title agency. So the manager suggested to our client to call the attorney and confirm these wire instructions. They seemed a bit off. The client called the number in the email for his attorney and spoke to whom he thought was the attorney and confirmed that these wire instructions were correct and to send it. Once the wire was released, the funds were out of the account and gone, as we have said. 2 weeks later, the client got the real attorney's email stating that the deposit was due. Obviously, those funds were long gone. And just for this part, the email spoofing, the phone number in this true story was off by 1 digit also.
And again, the police were notified and nothing could be done.
Nothing.
Yeah, because on the other end, when the wire gets sent to the other end, that is a fraudulent account as well. So they're just hoping to get monies in there and then to get it out as soon as possible. I'd like to also tell you about a personal story that happened to me involving email spoofing. So I am an Xfinity customer, and a few weeks ago, I received an email, and the email said my payment card that was on file on my account was going to expire. The email told me to click on a link to update the information. I almost clicked. I called myself though, and I went to the Xfinity site and I checked my information and it was correct. So when I went back to the email, I noticed that the F in Xfinity was actually a T. So, but the entire email looked so authentic. The logos were good, the format, there was no misspellings. It was very, very clever. So imagine how many people they may have gotten information from with this email. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for your personal information, whether it's a debit card, credit card. They'll take anything to get to some of your funds. So be careful before you click on any links or call any numbers from your email, especially if you're not expecting it. And even if you're expecting it, maybe go to the source as opposed to clicking on a link. So Ellen has some statistics she'd like to share.
Yes, I was telling Anna this morning, I heard on Fox Business News, there has been a surge in fraudulent email and texts from 88 billion messages in 2021 to 225 billion in 2022, with a reported loss in 2022 of 20 billion. I'm confident that number will increase for 2023, and we're just one financial institution.
Yeah, it's crazy how much fraud is out there. Some email spoofing protection tips. So to prevent your email from being the one that is compromised, never provide your security or account credentials to anyone. Do not click on any links or open attachments in emails you receive unless you're absolutely positive they are safe and from a legitimate sender. And next, we're going to be talking about text and voice phishing. So phishing is the authentic looking email, text messages, and web pages to trick unsuspecting users into revealing their personal information. And as we've been saying throughout this presentation, emails and text messages are a very popular way of conducting scams. There's a lot of information available on the dark web and in public records that may give fraudsters information so that they can target people. For example, we had a client that was a victim of a utility scam. He had fallen behind on his gas bill by 2 months, but had made a payment. He then received an email threatening he needed to pay the balance in full, or else the information that he was not paying his bills would be sent to his employer, and they also threatened to shut off his gas. They told him he needed to send payment immediately through Zelle. He sent the payment. He then went to the gas
Wait,
company
excuse
website.
me, Anna, I have to interrupt you. Did you just say Zelle for a
Yes,
utility payment?
yes.
N-
Zelle is
No,
Zelle is a person-to-person payment method. So if you're sending a payment to pay a friend for lunch, send it through Zelle, but never pay a bill through Zelle. He then went to the gas company website to see if the payment was applied and realized that the payment that was on the website was the a few weeks ago. So once he sent that money through Zelle, it's like sending cash. We couldn't get it back. Companies do not ask you to make payments through Zelle or by purchasing a gift card. If they had said to him, pay with a gift card, he might have been more suspect, but unfortunately, it is what it is. And Zelle is just as the same as sending cash. Next slide. So some text and phishing protection tips. You cannot usually win a contest unless you enter, and never pay to play, right, Swellen?
never. If you go to your local convenience store and purchase a lottery ticket, and a couple days later check the numbers and you won legitimate cash, and congratulations. If you receive an email, a text, or even a letter in the US mail stating that you won millions, but you have to pay some fees for taxes, inheritance tax fees, some kind of fee, throw it away, delete the email. You didn't win anything. It's the oldest scam going.
So be suspicious of pressure to wire funds. Anytime that somebody tries to pressure you into something, it's reason to take pause and to not do it immediately. Pay attention to warnings from your financial institution. Now, we as a bank do have alerts set up so that if there's unusual activity on your debit card, electronic transactions, withdrawals, or maybe unusual online banking activity, we do have alerts set up and we will communicate with you. We'll send you either an email, a text, or we'll make a phone call. When we do that, though, we are not asking you for information, we're providing you information. So we'll say, this debit card with the last 4 numbers of such and such, there was a transaction for $20 at Wawa. Please confirm yes or no, was this you? And all you have to do is reply. If you don't feel comfortable in replying, then call the bank. We have an 844 number set up so they can call in, or you can call somebody that you're familiar with at your local branch. But it's very important that you respond to these alerts because we are watching out to make sure that there's nothing unusual happening on your accounts. Also, if if you would prefer to call us, you can call us, but then we will ask for identifying information. So we then at that point will say, what is your social security number? What is your date of birth? Maybe what was the last deposit you made? So at that point we'll ask, but when we're reaching out to you, we will not ask you for it. What is your online banking username? We already know that information. We have it on file. So if the caller claims an emergency, check it out on the number you know to be valid, and be wary of requests for secrecy. You don't want to keep a secret from a family member or a friend. You know, the fraudster doesn't know that you're communicating with these people. Talk to them, because that may make a difference and may change your mind in getting involved with these fraudulent scams. Our next topic is going to be debit cards. So debit card compromise. So there is constantly alerts and unusual debit card transactions, because information on your cards, you use it everywhere. So it's available when there's certain compromises at merchants and what have you. So debit cards are a direct channel to your account. So please use caution when using your debit card. If you're making a purchase online, only use your debit card if it's a website that is known to you. If you've never used that website, you may want to consider using a credit card instead. It's so important to safeguard your card information, because unlike a credit card, the transactions will be posted to your account as soon as you make the purchase. So I'll tell you a story. We have an older client who had provided his debit card to his caregiver. He thought she was only going to use his card to make purchases that he authorized, like going to the pharmacy or maybe purchasing food for him. So one day he was going to use his debit card to make a transaction for himself, and the card got declined. When he went to check, he reviewed his account, and he noticed that his caregiver was making transactions that he didn't authorize, including getting her nails done. Because he had given her his card and PIN number, the transactions could not be processed as unauthorized, because he gave her that information. So the only action he could take really is to go against her personally, and that becomes difficult. So just be very careful. The next line.
Anna, real quick, you mentioned that it was an elderly gentleman that this happened to, but I just want our audience to know that these fraudsters, they don't care if you're old, young, male, female, that any one of us could fall victim to these scams. Anybody can. So you must be diligent in checking everything constantly.
Very true. So some debit card tips. So real-time alerts will notify you if anything is happening on your account. So if you have our mobile app, you can go into the cards section there, and you can actually turn off your card and only turn it back on when you go to use it. Or you can actually set up an alert to say only use the card if it's within this town. Or you could set up alerts to say only use the card if it's near my phone. There's so much available to you with this alert system that you really have control over your card and what happens with it. Also, do not write your password on your card. Your password, it gives them opportunity to use it for ATM and get cash. So be very careful with that. And do not give anyone your card, not even your son, right, Sue Ellen?
Nope, don't give it to your son, your daughter. Don't give that card to anyone.
So now this is really the end of our presentation. However, there's a story that is happening locally that Sue Ellen's going to tell you about.
And I'm sure a lot of you may have heard it over the weekend. It was all over the news. There is a group called the Felony Lane Gang, which originated in South Florida over a decade ago and travels up and down the East Coast. What they do, these criminals smash your car window and grab any valuables from parking lots of food stores, schools, and gyms, just to name a few. They use the stolen driver's license, credit and debit cards, checks, and go to various financial institutions, drive through furthest lane, hence the nickname Felony Lane Gang, and cash these fraudulent checks using legitimate ID and account information. So always lock your car. Do not leave your purse or valuables in sight. Anna, do you want to share what happened to one of our clients?
Yeah, we actually had, Sue Ellen had two clients who were at Alair State Park, and they had both they had their wallet stolen. So the person got their driver's license and a debit card, and they came to the bank and attempted to cash checks that they had fraudulently gotten from other bank robberies, car thefts. So, be very careful. And, somebody had made a suggestion, and I think it's a great suggestion. So if you're planning on going to the park or somewhere and you're not going to take your wallet, pocketbook, or briefcase, put it in your trunk before you actually get to the place. So this way, nobody, if somebody's watching, they won't see that you're doing that and they don't realize that you have something to steal.
Anna, was that somebody that made the suggestion, our coworker Luann?
It was.
I see that Luann's on the call. Luann, do you have anything that you want to share with our audience today?
Hi, Sue Ellen and Anna. Yeah. My name is Luann Severio, and I am the CRA and Compliance Officer at Manasquan Bank. Sue Ellen and Anna asked me if I would share with you a personal experience that affected one of my family members. As Sue Ellen refers to them as the fraudster or bad actor, this person contacted one of my family members on her cell phone. The fraudster was portraying her grandson, and he told her he was just pulled over and was arrested. He needed $3,000 for bail money, and he did not want her to contact his parents. He needed the money as soon as possible, so he asked her to go to the store and purchase a gift card and provide him with the number on the card so he could use this for the bail. He actually stayed on the phone with her until the gift card was purchased. As Sue Ellen and Anna have mentioned, the fraudsters played on the victim's emotions. My family member was so upset that her grandson was arrested, all she wanted to do was help her grandson and didn't even think to ask any specific questions that only her grandson would know. Actually, this situation was happening frequently in her area, but again, that did not raise any red flag because her emotions got the best of her. The fraudster was able to get the $3,000 and this money is long gone. Not only was she upset at the thought of her grandson in trouble, but once this all sank in as to what really happened, her new emotion was feeling violated. This can happen to any one of us. The theme to all these situations that Anna and Sue Ellen have described is stop, think, and verify.
Thank you, Luann. That concludes our presentation. Juliana, are we going to open to questions now?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sue Ellen, Anna, and our guest, Luann. We're going to open it up to some questions here. We already do have a couple that people sent in, so Sue Ellen and Anna, please feel free to jump in and answer. First up, we did have a question regarding Medicare fraud and some tips.
So with Medicare fraud, use the same precautions that we've mentioned during this presentation. If you get a bill in the mail for medical expenses that are not yours, contact Medicare. Sometimes it's hard to get through, but be persistent and keep trying. And do not pay the bill. Shred all your medical documents once they are no longer needed, and take advantage of shred events. Like Manasquan Bank offers free shred days throughout the year that you can use safely to destroy sensitive documents. And other organizations in your town might also do the same.
That's a great tip. Thank you, Anna. Next up, how do we put extra security requirements to get into our online banking accounts?
I'll take that one too. So the bank has programs in place that alert us to unusual login activities. So we're watching for unusual IP address logins, or maybe you have never logged in from a device. So we are monitoring that and we will communicate with individuals. However, I'm going to suggest setting up either a complex password, or even now what's very popular is a passphrase instead. So if you love cars, so maybe you could think of a passphrase like, I love my sporty car, and change the E in love to a 3. So something like that only you would know, and that's catchy and you can remember. And don't make your password the same for other sites as well. Try to be creative, and I know it's difficult, but try to be creative and make different passwords for different things.
Great. How will fraud change as AI becomes more sophisticated? So as technology advances and now we're seeing AI everywhere, how will this change fraud?
I'll jump in here. You may see more calls from individuals posing as friends or family members that sound authentic. Spoofing phone numbers and emails, as we mentioned earlier, is something these fraudsters really do well. And if the request sounds unusual, hang up and call the number you have in your contacts and know who you're speaking to.
That's a great tip. Thank you. And just in the interest of time, we're going to wrap up here with one last question. Somebody asked, how safe is my money with Manasquan Bank?
I'll take that. Your money is very safe at Manasquan Bank. You have Anna and I protecting your money and watching it all the time. We provide you with tools such as online banking and mobile banking that enable you to review your accounts at your convenience. There are alerts that the bank makes available to notify you of activity occurring in your accounts in real time. And we have experts that can help you with your banking, so please take advantage of this and call if you need assistance.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing all of these tips. Anna, Sue Ellen, do you guys have any final thoughts before we conclude today?
Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you found this helpful.
And the fraudsters are not going to go away, so please be mindful and take a pause before you do anything.
For sure. Thank you guys so much. We want to sincerely thank each and every one of you who joined us this morning for this seminar. We hope you found it informative as you navigate common scams in your everyday life. We'll also be sending a post-event survey to capture your feedback, so please complete the survey at your earliest convenience. Thank you all and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay, thank